It's been a month since the Steam Machine's release, and while the criticisms of it are justified, I wanted to take today and sort of go through the why it wasn't as good as what it could have been. Now, this is just talking about the why. I'm not at all trying to blame Valve. Like, it could be Valve's fault for one thing, but then not Valve's fault for another thing. I'm just specifically talking about everything that I can think of that would cause the Steam Machine not to be as good as what it could have been. Now, this in no means I'm saying that the Steam Machine was a failure. I'm just saying, like, it could have been better. Starting us off with the obvious, we got the price tag, and I don't blame Valve for the price tag because the main reason it's so high up is because manufacturing costs of consoles has gone up very significantly due to the AI boom. So you got RAM price increase, you got storage price increase, and all this other stuff. But there are some other things that I learned fairly recently that would suggest that while the price tag is as high as it is, there was a way for them to sell it at a lower price, and a strategy that other consoles have been using for a while now, such as Sony and Microsoft, that I didn't even learn of until fairly recently. This isn't exactly common knowledge, but it's not very hard to find out. Like, I went many years without even knowing this, but Xbox and PlayStation have always sold their consoles at a loss, starting way back in the PS3, Xbox 360 era. And you're probably wondering why they would ever do that. It's because it's a strategy called loss leader strategy, where they sell whatever merchandise they have at an unprofitable, like, you can read what the definition is right there. So in this case, they sell the console at a loss, and they rely on you buying things like their video games or their subscriptions or other such microtransactions that gives them any money. So in that way, once the manufacturing cost for that console goes down, they then essentially meet profit of the console. So their main goal here isn't so much to get the consoles out there, but to start selling games and such. The consoles are just the means to do that, so that's why they sell the consoles at a loss to sort of meet that end goal. And Valve could have done something like this to also like make it more worth it and get more people to buy it. Like, you know, save a couple hundred, because I guess it's rumored that since PS5, I guess, costs like 500. It probably costs about 700 to make, so you could save a couple $100 at the very least for the Steam Machine if they had done that same strategy. But the problem is, back then, PlayStation and Xbox had a lot of things going for them to sell their console at a lower price. They had physical media, they had other merchandise, they had subscriptions. Valve doesn't have that. They don't have physical media, they don't use subscriptions. The only thing they could probably make money off of is the games, which they sell on a sale quite a lot. And on top of that, AI exists. So there's not a lot of ways for Steam to make money off of the Steam Machine if they sold it at a loss other than their games, especially with all this other stuff. And the manufacturing cost for the Steam Machine is probably almost never gonna go down because of the AI boom. So it's just not really going to work. Next, I'm going to talk about the sort of bundle deal with the Steam Machine and the Steam controller. See, in the prices, they have, you know, the list of like buying the console or buying the console variant with the controller. And, you know, like most of these consoles, they usually have some sort of deal with it. Like, you buy the console, you get the controller. That's usually how it is. You don't really buy them separately unless you like break one. The issue here is that, you know, on top of the Steam Machine being so expensive, the Steam controller isn't that much better, given that it's much more expensive than a PS5 controller, and when you buy them as a bundle, you're only really saving $20 USD when you buy them as a bundle, which, sure, you're saving money. In one way, that's a good way to look at it. But, you know, there's only so much you could do when you can say that you're saving money by buying them as a bundle, but you're not saving any money at all because you're spending thousands of dollars for them. And, you know, you could just get a better deal by just buying the console, or just don't, or like use your own controller that you already have. Next, I'll talk about more in the console rather than the outside external factors. See, I saw some videos of people using the Steam Machine, and while it looked great, or like the way people used it, it seemed fairly good, like everything worked the way it should, there were some games that registered the Steam Machine as a Steam Deck instead of an actual console, so you would get the lower resolution, lower pixels, whatever, of the game, instead of what the Steam Machine could handle. So the obvious problem with that is that you're spending thousands of dollars on a console, and then you get essentially the resolution of a handheld on said console. Now, I don't know who exactly is to blame for that sort of thing. I don't know if it's the devs of the game that does that, or if it's Steam themselves that, like, register. But the fact that there are still like cases where you would probably buy a game and it would just be registered as a Steam Deck instead of a Steam machine is kind of unfortunate. And I think one of the biggest problems I have with the Steam machine is that right now its main demographic is supposedly PC gamers, console gamers who want to start playing PC games, or people who just like playing their games in the living room and whatnot, because that's usually what consoles are played on, in the living room. And here's the issue. It said console players wanting an entry into PC gaming. So people who have never really used Steam before, because if you're playing on console, most consoles don't have Steam, so you can get what I'm saying there. And the issue here is that in order to get a Steam machine, and I think it's still a rule to this day, you would need to have a Steam account old enough and a Steam account that has a purchase history old enough. So you already need a lot of money in order to get the Steam machine. And you also need to already have a Steam account, despite the fact you probably have never made one, in order to qualify to buy a Steam machine. So the main issue here is that, like, you say your main demographic is console gamers wanting an entry into PC gaming, but the way I see it, it seems like you don't even really allow that because you have all these rules. I get why they have the rules. After all, it's because of scalpers that they had this rule, so that way not everyone could, so that way like people on eBay couldn't just sell it for thousands of dollars more, just so that, you know, people all around the world could get a Steam machine. But I'm just saying, it just felt kind of ironic, and I was one of those people who was really excited to get a Steam machine when it eventually came out, because I would have loved to be able to start playing PC games instead of playing console games. And then I just see all that stuff, and it just felt kind of, I want to almost say disingenuous, but I think I'm saying the wrong word there. At the end of the day, I think the Steam machine is still a fairly good console. It's just the price tag is abhorrent, and I also hate the rules behind buying a Steam machine. And the way I see it is like they have their demographic as console gamers who want to get into PC gaming, and then they say, "Oh, you know what? Actually, screw you. We're only going to sell this to already like people who are playing on Steam." So it's just Steam people get more things to play Steam on with their Steam device, and Steam. And, like, I can get their rule. After all, like, scalpers was a big thing and big problem back when the PS5 released, so it's not like I can really say much. It's just that it felt kind of disingenuous for them to say that and then do that, especially since there's probably some other better ways they could have sold the console instead of having this rule. I'm not exactly sure what that would be, but, like, you know, if you want to tell people that you're making this console for console gamers who want to get into PC gaming, then at least make a way for them to at least buy the console without already needing to have a Steam account, which they most likely don't have because they've been playing on console for all their lives. That being said, I think that's the end of this video, guys. I hope I talked about everything. There's probably some other stuff that I don't even really know about. It's just I learned some of this info quite recently, and I wanted to talk about it because it felt like it was a good thing to mention and, like, you know, just sort of bring to light in a sort of way, even though a lot of people probably already knew this. So if there is something that you think I forgot, then feel free to comment down below and let me know what I forgot, because there are some things I straight up just don't know, or some things that I might have forgotten to say. And if you liked the video, leave a like. If you like the content, subscribe. If, you know, this is sort of something you're interested in. If you like these low budget videos where I just talk to a screen for hours at a time, then yeah, let me know. Anyways, that's about it. Later.